Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is Sabina, and we are going to show you the difference between a crayon, oil pastels, and Nupastels. And I'll tell you the difference between Nupastels and pastels without showing you an actual pastel, which is probably very confusing. Because, yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to be using some mixed media art paper. One thing that I learned when I was in art school is not all paper is made equal. And I had known that to some degree with just drawing paper, but it goes to a whole different level when you're dealing with pastels, Nupastels, oil pastels, which are all different, because depending on the type of paper, it can handle what you're using differently. So this kind of paper is going to have a little bit of what's called a tooth, which I just love that term, toothy paper. It means that it's going to be a little rougher, and I mean, this is like very, very minor, almost a watercolor paper, so not much texture, but a true Nupastel or pastel paper would be almost like a sandpaper. It's pretty legit. And I wish I had some to show you right now, but maybe sometime I'll bust them out. I think the only pieces I have right now are massive, so it's kind of hard to dig out from wherever I hit it. But the tooth in paper, when you draw on it, actually will hold the, I guess, particles of the pastel, oil or Nupastel, and it will allow you to actually layer on top. So layer color over color. And that can be very, very, very advantageous, because then it's easier to do corrections. It's easier to just add to your work and make it more dimensional. So first off, I'm going to show you a couple of differences between how these perform. So the biggest difference between a crayon and an oil pastel is the oil pastel, even just touching the crayon itself, you can tell it has kind of a waxy substance, and it's going to come off on your hands much less than a crayon is. Oil pastels have oil in them, hence the name. So I said waxy substance, but I actually meant more oil. And then crayons have more of a wax to them, I think. You can color with crayons, but you're not going to get much spread if you try to smudge them. While with oil pastels, they're going to be more vibrant and you're going to get a lot more spread. Now, you might be looking at what I'm doing and cringing because you might not be familiar with this, but this is actually a technique, smudging, and it can be very messy, but it can also be very fun. This is how I learned how to draw with pastels, and it really took a lot of like relearning what I thought was right before, and it actually helped me paint better as well. So big difference. This one you're gonna have to apply a whole lot more to get a lot of coverage. This one just has a lot of pigment. Now let's look at Nupastels. Now, what's a Nupastel? A Nupastel is not an oil pastel. It's not a crayon. And a pastel, just pastel, not oil and not new, is more of a chalky substance. While a Nupastel is almost like a crayon, but without the waxy side. Now, these do much better with a toothy, a surface that's going to have a lot more grit to it, but it's going to go on. They can be brittle, so I break them all the time. It's going to go on a lot more like chalk, but unlike a regular pastel where it's going to go on very, 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 very soft, this is going to take a little bit more effort. It's okay. They break. Yeah, they're very breakable. But the good news is, even if they break, you can use them down to the tiniest little nubs. So this, as you can see, has a lot more spread, and part of that is because you're going to get some fallout. You're going to get a lot of like particles coming off of it as you draw. And so I usually draw upright on a canvas. It helps to catch stuff, but you're going to get a little messy. So either do it outside or put a drop cloth underneath. We're just doing a little example. But as you can see, like, you can really get that color vibrant. You can keep layering it and keep getting it really, 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 really vibrant and beautiful. And it layers really nicely. And it mixes really nicely. So this was like a dream come true when I was doing drawing class, because I tended to, when I would do painting, I would want to stick my hands in it. And this is something where it's like, it's really gonna be beneficial if you stick your hands in it. Now, you may see kind of a little bit of the white of the paper through here. As I said before, if you have a toothier paper that feels almost more like a sandpaper, it's going to accept all that little fallout a lot better, and you'll be able to use more material within the paper. So this isn't the best paper to do this on, but it works. So one thing I wanted to show you today, and this can apply to really any medium, but I especially like it with paint and Nupastels, and that's trying to get a really clean edge on something. So I'm gonna move this over here. So nice, I love it. So colorful. She is a mixed media artist because she's using all of these at the same time. Crayon, Nupastel, oil pastel. And I love this set of pastels because it actually comes with 2 layers. And I invested in this when I really got serious about pastels. A lot of my work is done in Nupastels. And if you go to RW Artworks on Facebook, you can see a lot of my work done in Nupastels. And a lot of it looks like paint, but it's not. So what I want to show you now is how I get a really sharp edge. So let's say I'm working on a face. Blah de blah. I'm just like kind of visualizing this being the cheek. If you need to go wash your hands, you can, or you can get wet wipes. Okay. So I'm gonna try not to blow this everywhere because it can very quickly become like this crazy mess. So definitely not something to do over carpet like I'm doing right now, but I do have a newspaper under it and we're only just doing a little exercise. So let's just pretend that I'm doing a face and I want to get this edge here really, really sharp, because it's nice to have sharp edges when you want them, and it's frustrating when you can't get sharp edges and you need it. So let me just kind of get my bearings here so I actually feel like I'm doing something. Just like totally eyeballing this. So here's my little person. And see how I can just like blend this in? Love it. So fun to work with. Good idea. So okay. Sabina has gotten some wet wipes so that we can clean off our hands when we're done with this. So anyway, it can be very frustrating when you really want to have like an edge to something, but you just keep getting kind of this messy edge. You keep adding to it, you keep trying to do it sharper, you keep trying and trying and trying, and it just keeps coming out really, really, messy's not a good word, but with lots of, you know, fallout from the material. It's just not really looking clean. And even when I blow it off, it still has kind of some gunk. So one thing that works in your advantage here is to work with something that you're willing to draw some sort of a background in. So either have a paper that's already colored and you're willing to kind of use that color as your background, or be willing to draw a background color as you're going. So now that I'm done messing with the face, what I would do, and you really have to be careful with this stuff because your hands will very quickly be saturated, and you don't want to add a color that's on your hand to a space you're trying to clean up. It's very easy to do. And you also don't want to have tons and tons of like moisture in your hands from a wet wipe. So you might want to use like just a towel to just wipe it off. Just be careful. Mostly just for not ruining a piece that you really like. So I just blew away some of this. Let's move this over here so you're not reaching across, okay? So to clean up this edge, let's say I want to use like this really bright, no, I already did that. Let's say I want to use like a green. Would that work? Sure, why not? Or blue. Maybe I'll do a combination. So what I would do is I would come in here and I would try to get the sharper color blended in right to the edge, very carefully, not combining these two colors, trying not to blend them at all, which is difficult to do, but if you're careful, it's possible. And that way, oops, I got a little bit. That way, I'm going to really set off this edge and make it look much sharper than it is. Another thing I really like to do when I'm able, and this is my favorite tool, is just my finger. Another thing I like to use when I'm able is to like get this to a sharpened edge and use it to just really cut in there. So you're not just like using a rounded crayon edge where you can't really control how wide it is. So from here, I might do a little bit more, sharpening that up. Zip.
Mommy.
Hold on. And then from there, I would take some sort of a highlight to really make it pop. And now, see, I've got the blue on my hand, so I don't want to use that same finger to do this. So I'm going to use something else. But I'm going to find a clean edge of this, and I'm just barely going to go on the flesh side. So I'm not coloring on the blue side at all. I'm just coloring on the flesh side.
Mommy,
What?
this is coloring.
That's so pretty! Look at this. Isn't that beautiful? So nice. I love it. You used all the colors. Almost all the colors. There's a lot of colors there. So, now that I've cut this in on this side, it's really just a game of back and forth between enhancing the side that's lighter and then enhancing the side that's darker. Enhancing the side that's lighter, enhancing the side that's darker, until they really distinguish against each other. Hopefully that makes sense. I might even take some of this lighter color. It's almost like a creamy porcelain. So it's mostly just a back and forth battle between light and dark, good and evil. Maybe not good and evil, but light and dark in the most literal sense. So again, I am not touching that blue. As soon as I touch that blue, it is going to get all up in this. So it's pretty sharp. Using dark and light to complement each other or to contrast each other works in your advantage. So I want you to practice. Don't worry about making a face. Faces are just my default. I want you to get a piece of paper. And I want you to practice, even with crayons. Doesn't have to be, if you don't have Nupastels, don't worry about it. You can even do this with chalk, but practice outside. Choose a light color or a bright color, like yellow. Do one side yellow. Oh, I'm gonna have so much stuff on my floor. This was not a good plan. And then get a darker color. Something that's gonna contrast against that. And practice trying to get a really clean edge. And then I'm going to go back to the yellow. I'm going to really get in there. Sometimes you have to kind of correct things. I've had whole drawings where the whole outside of the drawing looked like this. And you don't want that. I mean, you might, but in this case, it didn't look good. So I've had to take the actual pastels and turn it into my background just because the background was so messy. So, see, there's a little line of something here. I would have to clean that up. I would want to clean that up a little bit. Or you can work with it and make it kind of different. Add a different color, just blend it in. You could add some orange. But going back to that edge, you could even do a lighter yellow. Yeah. And see, it's already making that pop. And when I say pop, I mean stand out. Another thing I've done before is take a clean finger that has not been blending anything and blend one time down the center. Just to blend in those colors and kind of finalize it. And it just really gets a nice, sharp, cleaned up edge. So that is an edge. That's a cleaned up edge using a unpredictable material or medium, whatever. So go outside, get some sunshine, practice this. Let me know what you think. Let me know what kinds of pastels you like to use. Have you ever used Nupastels? Have you used pastels, the chalky kind? Have you used oil pastels? What's your fave? And if you haven't used any, tell me what other things you've used or what you like to use best. I really love using just like sidewalk chalk to draw outside. That's really fun. Let's not pick up that corner. Okay, well that is all for now. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Get some sunshine, enjoy, and we will talk later.